Hi, it's Victoria Lorient-Fabish, holistic psychotherapist. Today I would like to talk about compensating behaviors. We all have our family dynamics that we have grown up in, and many of us, and a lot in my practice, this is incredibly brought up very often, people who engage in compensating behaviors in order to survive. So for example, someone who's constantly being the comedian or being the pleaser or being the chameleon, turning themselves into whatever their environment is. All of these types of behaviors are usually behaviors that we discover in our minds, a way to gain favor with our family, a way to not upset our mother or our father. So I noticed that a lot of people, as a rule, don't really experience true authenticity because they're very much still entrenched in childhood behaviors and in childhood roles of behavior that they have unconsciously maintained themselves in. And so these parts of themselves that are constantly, say, compensating by being the comedian, by being the chameleon, all of those things I spoke about earlier, and I'm sure that I'm only speaking about 3 that I can think of right now. There are many, many, many compensating behaviors, and I want you to ask yourself, what compensating behavior that is taken on like a personality style in my being is still active today that I have inherited or that I have brought forth from my childhood? So it is like this part of us. I read an interesting story that was documented about soldiers in the World War II, Japanese soldiers who had sort of been fighting in the jungle and then sort of got separated from their troops and ended up in different islands and in caves for years after the war had ended. And the Japanese government apparently was very, very careful how they later, years later, many, many years later, some of these men unfortunately continued to act like the war was still on 20 years after the actual war. And it was quite unfortunate because they were sort of stuck in a time that no longer was, obviously 20 years later. So the way that the Japanese government dealt with these unfortunate men was to very, very gently bring a general's uniform out and say thank you. They approached them very carefully because these men were, shooting at the world, defending Japan. And of course they had to very, very carefully approach these men and say, thank you for your service to our country, and thank you for everything you've done. And it took days and days and days to finally, they said, and the war is over actually. And so you don't have to behave in this way anymore. Little siren going out here in Toronto, downstairs if you can hear it. Anyways, what I want to say to you is that a lot of these compensating behaviors that are from your childhood and you've brought forth into your adult life, these parts of you need to be grown up. They need to no longer be acting like you. In other words, you don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. If you're a comedian as a result of this, well, keep your comedic timing and your comedic sense. If you have the ability to be a pleaser, this is a little bit difficult because I see a lot of people pleasers and a lot of people trying to always please, please, please so that they are not rejected or abandoned. And also people who are chameleons, you got to watch that. I mean, these are behaviors that work in some circumstances, but it's not going to be at all helpful to you if you completely change in a chameleon-like way your personality based on the group you're in. People are going to start to go in your adult life, what's this? I mean, who's the real person here? Who's really here? Who is the authentic self? And the person themselves, I'm sure, is going, who am I really? What is my authentic being? But it's hard to just say, okay, I'm going to be my authentic self. So one of the methodologies is for you to take a moment and really commune with this part of you that you've discovered to be the compensating behavior part of you. And you want to sit and meditate with this part and talk to it gently, just like that soldier was talked to, and say, thank you so much for helping me to survive family and helping me to survive life as a child when I had no power and no say, and thank you, but the reality is that environment is not going on anymore, and now I want to try and really live life as my authentic self. Now, I'm not going to say you're gone, you're finished, I'm done with you part, but I'm going to bring my comedic part in. I'm going to bring my pleaser part sometimes. I'm going to bring my chameleon part in sometimes, but I'm going to only bring it in from my toolbox when needed. I'm not just going to unconsciously live in this compensating behavior way all the time. So I think that this is the path to a much happier existence, because I have found that people who live authentically are much happier, and people who live their truth are much happier. So I am sharing this with you for you to get a snapshot of what is actually going on with some of you, that you're not being your true self, but you're not doing that just because you're being fake, but you're doing that because you had to survive as a kid with these kinds of compensating behavioral patterns to survive the family environment. But you don't necessarily need to do that now. So take a moment and make peace with that part and thank that part, but also tell it that there's a new environment now. Okay. So, as usual, I'm asking you to subscribe to my channel and email me at askvictoria@rogers.com. And you can also read the transcribed written version of this video and all my videos at visualizationworks.com. All right, have a wonderful day and bring out the toolbox, but live your true self, okay? Have a wonderful day.